Welcome to the Off the Mic Wrestling Show here on YouTube, your SmackDown recap. Um, if you didn't watch this show, I don't blame you. This was largely skippable. It felt like a show that was taped a week ago. It felt like a show that was kind of just going through the motions a week before, 8 days before SummerSlam. And listen, Raw is miles ahead of this show. It's not even close. There's a lot of really talented people on this show, but this show desperately, desperately needs Roman Reigns. Absolutely. And we know he's coming back at SummerSlam. At least we assume that's going to happen. And the Bloodline storyline is going to go a million miles a minute leading into SummerSlam and coming out of it. And it's going to really be the main storyline in the back half of 2024. But they need it desperately because Raw is just lapping this show in terms of compelling storylines and compelling angles. The matches have been fine. The gauntlet that happened on the show is actually really good. A lot of good work in it. But yeah, it's just like, Solo Sikoa is your number one heel right now. Like I like Solo. And I like what they're trying to do with this bloodline, but it's starting to get redundant. It's starting to get repetitive. There needs to be a new twist that comes soon. And hopefully that's going to come either Friday or definitely on Saturday of next week with SummerSlam and SmackDown being in Cleveland, my second home, which I'm really excited to see Cleveland show up and show out for a big time show, an event in SummerSlam next week. So, but yeah, like the large takeaway from this show is that SmackDown is really, really lacking right now. And it'll probably draw a good rating. They've been doing really good ratings being on network television, but they really need to step their game up on SmackDown. And the absence of Roman Reigns, especially in the last couple of weeks, has really been felt. And Paul Heyman, too, who was really low-key an MVP since Roman left after WrestleMania. Like Heyman's really held that thing together. Solo is doing the best he can. Jacob Fatu is freaking fantastic. But this is just it. Like I said, we're just spinning our wheels here, and they've got to do something drastic very, very soon. So let's run through this show. So show starts. Nick Aldis is on the phone. The Bloodline walks in. He points out, "Hey, Tongaloa, you got injured in the whole situation last week. He had an eye patch over his eye, and you guys are going to have to forfeit your spot in the gauntlet." And basically, Tama Tonga is pissed off, saying, "No, we ain't relinquishing anything." And Solo basically reiterates that, saying, "Yeah, Jacob, we do have other people. Jacob Fatu is going to take Tongaloa's place in this match." Nick Aldis agrees, and we move into the show. And the show really begins with something they have not done, which this was such a missed opportunity for so long. When you have somebody as gifted as LA Knight on the microphone, and you've been doing these follow camera shots, these singular one-shot entrances where you follow them from the backstage area to the ramp and then finally do a camera cut. LA Knight does a full-on promo about Logan Paul and Santos Escobar leading into his match to kick off the show. And this was fantastic. It's just like when you have somebody as gifted and talented, like I've seen these promos, like DIY did it recently. They do these like once every show. Like when you have somebody as talented on the microphone as an LA Knight and a guy is over as LA Knight, you've got to do that type of stuff way more often. So I'm glad that they did that here. That was really neat to start the show off. So this is a fine match with kind of an odd finish, but I understand why they went the route that they did. So Santos is in control of this for a lot of it. Elektra early on distracts. The ref is distracted by Santos, and LA gets hung up on the rope, and then Santos hits a 619. I mean, we've been way out of the Rey Mysterio feud for a long time, but hey, at least it's good to know that he's taken some of Rey's work. Coming out of break, LA takes over with a DDT, gets a 2 count. He goes for a torture rack, Elektra dead, and distracts him again. It leads to going for a BFT out of it, and Santos hits an elbow, then a power slam, and Elektra then distracts the referee again. Logan tries to hit Logan Paul comes in, tries to hit LA, but he misses. LA then counters the Phantom Driver from Santos into a BFT and the win. Logan attacks immediately after the bell. LA briefly is then able to take control of it before Santos gets a high knee into LA's face. The heels then beat up LA. Logan hits a frog splash, and that's it. Sort of weird. LA gets a win, but doesn't even really get a chance to celebrate it because of Logan Paul. Like I said, it was fine for what it was to kind of advance a storyline, but it was just there. It was just there. Like, Santos is fine, but he's really got no steam behind him whatsoever. Nobody really cares about Santos Escobar anymore, and nobody really cares about Legado del Fantasma anymore. So it's like, yeah, we knew LA Knight was going to win. This really wasn't in doubt. There's a lot of distractions, and then, like you said, you have the Logan Paul thing at the end that backfires, but then he ultimately stands tall going into the final week in the build before their match at SummerSlam in 8 days. Naomi gets a promo. She says she doesn't know what Blair Davenport's problem is with her. This was like Blair Davenport. They kind of refreshed everyone's mind with a recap here. Naomi says, I'm going to make her feel the glow and respect the glow. Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill support their friend and say, yeah, we're going to go challenge the tag team champions for a match because we want our titles back. Then we get, at a break, a Logan Paul backstage promo. This was interesting. Said, hey, that was a little appetizer of what's to come at SummerSlam. He said he called Mr. Cleveland and that they will have a special Logan Paul homecoming, and you'll have to tune in to see what that means. A lot of speculation on the internet if it's a famous athlete. It's not LeBron, people. He's let's get real. It's not LeBron. LeBron's over in Paris for the Olympics. So it's not LeBron. We can narrow that down. Could be Travis Kelce. I don't know. He's from Cleveland. His brother's gotten involved in stuff. So we've already seen professional athletes get involved in this feud with LA Knight and Logan Paul, with obviously the Tyrese Halliburton and Jalen Brunson stuff from a couple weeks ago at Madison Square Garden, which honestly was really one of the better SmackDowns that they've had in the last month. And really, this show has kind of just taken a dive ever since. It's been really, really mid. Like, it hasn't been outright terrible. I will say that. SmackDown has not been outright terrible. It's just been really, really mid. And when you stack it up against Raw, that makes it look terrible. So that's what I'll say on that. So continuing on this Logan Paul promo, he says, LA Knight, you're not wrestling just the U.S. champion, but a social media star and a guy who went from an underdog to an icon in his hometown. And they does the yeah at the end, which was, okay, neat, but kind of some cheap heat there. Another promo, Bianca and Jade, Bianca says, Isla and Alba have been ghosting us since they beat us at Clash at the Castle. And they're like, and they keep going, where are they at? And Alba and Isla's music hits. They come up from behind and attack Bianca and Jade. Bianca then is able to fight out of Bianca is able to fight out, almost gives the KOD to Isla, but Isla is able to escape and land feet first on the apron. Jade then press slams Alba Fire to the outside onto Isla Dawn to end this segment. That was an impressive feat of strength. Jade just continues to do the little things, just really simple but effective stuff. And it was revealed later in this show, among many things, we're going to get a couple of championship matches the night before SummerSlam. One of them being this match. So I would imagine Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill are going to win the championships back next Friday. Maybe there is some shenanigans to extend this out a little bit more, but I can't see a scenario where Bianca and Jade are losing clean whatsoever in this match. So either it's going to be they're winning, or it's going to be some sort of screwed up finish, or maybe a DQ, whatever, to continue this thing along and maybe string this on a little bit longer and have them chase a little bit longer. But I just don't really see a reason to do that. Like, you gave Alba and Isla their moment in their home country. They've strung this along long enough. I think they've got a title defense. I think it's against Lash Legend and Jakara Jackson on NXT next week, so that'll be interesting. But yeah, this has kind of been a whole lot of nothing. It's been kind of emblematic of what this women's tag division is. They're just kind of trying to get some life, and I think just get behind Bianca and Jade, and make this division interesting. Get some lively teams in there. You've got a ton of talent on the NXT roster. Start pairing teams together. Start trying to build this thing up rather than just like hot shotting things, because this just ended. Bianca and Jade looked like they were going to be on a long reign, but then it just ended abruptly, and it's led to nothing. It was a pop in a home country, and that's it. And my biggest critique, and my sister can attest to this because she's a woman, and obviously she stands for what's right in women's wrestling, and she's thought from the jump that this division has been built like crap and has been booked like crap. So we need to start respecting the women's tag division a lot more than what it's been dealing with. This was fine, but again, it could be a whole hell of a lot better, and I hope that Bianca and Jade get the titles back because they deserve it. Street Profits are then seen warming up for the Gauntlet with BFAB, and in comes Terrence Crawford. They pump him up. They pump up his fight that they've been hyping up, which is ironically the same night as SummerSlam, which I find really interesting. Yeah, you do some cross promotion, but now you're promoting a fight that's going directly again. Well, I mean, the fight it's in LA, so based off the fact that SummerSlam starts at 7 Eastern, 4 Pacific, there's a really strong chance that this is just going to be built, and SummerSlam is probably going to end before Terrence Crawford actually fights. But I think it's interesting that, nonetheless, you're booking something that's like technically going on in a completely different place than yours, but they've already sold a ton of tickets for SummerSlam, so that's neither here nor there. Then we have Tiffany Stratton. They show what happened last week with her losing to Michin and her briefcase getting broken. There's going to be a new briefcase at some point, so Tiffany and Nia have a promo. Nia says, hey, don't worry about it, and Tiffany had like some green and pink tape on her briefcase to hold it together, so Nia said, don't worry about it. I'm going to get you a new briefcase. Nia says, yeah, you could cash in on Bayley and get your revenge, but I still have my guaranteed match at SummerSlam, and I wouldn't want you to have a short title reign. And this sets the stage for Nia Jax and Tiffany Stratton versus Michin and Bayley in the main event of this show. Then we get to the tag team gauntlet, which took up a large chunk of this show. This was really good. A lot of good work in this match. A lot of really talented teams. It starts with Baron Corbin and Apollo Crews against Angel and Berto. I got to tell you, man, I have loved even if it's lower on the card, what they've been doing with Baron Corbin and even pairing him with Apollo Crews. These guys work really well together. I think this is a fun tag team. You can tell that Baron Corbin as a babyface feels like there's a lot of energy behind him. And for the first time since he won the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal in his main roster debut at WrestleMania 32, almost a decade ago, this guy has a purpose. This guy feels like there's some meaning to him. And he's just consistently just been delivering. And like he had a bunch of fun stuff. He really like setting up the hot tag really early on in this match. He hip tossed Berto in the turnbuckle. Apollo, he gets three German suplexes, which is great. Apollo then gets a knee and a backbreaker for 2. Or Apollo actually gets hit with a knee and a backbreaker for 2. I think it was that was Garza Angel who did that. Apollo is then able to get out of the wing clipper to a black hag from Corbin. He hits the end of days, which is still one of the best and most protected finishing moves in the business. Corbin and Apollo advance over Legado del Fantasma. So that's a good start for this tag team to get a win over a team that they've kind of been feuding with. The Street Profits are out next. Really the big spot of this match that really got a lot of play on. Montez Ford hit a back suplex or a backdrop suplex where Apollo Crews looked like he was about inches away from breaking his neck. And that only got a 2 count. But man, I'm surprised that Apollo Crews was able to function after that. That was nasty. Corbin then gets a nasty looking punch that sends Montez bouncing off the apron, goes to the floor. And then one of the things that I think that has made Baron Corbin so funny is he's starting to do dives. So he does an assisted dive with the help of Apollo Crews, throwing him out to the ring. He lands on both Street Profits, and we get another break. It gets to the point later on in this match where Montez and Apollo are alone in the ring, and they hit dueling dives to their respective opponents on either side of the ring. That was a cool spot. But then Apollo gets isolated, and Corbin ends up being put away outside, and Apollo gets hit with the Street Profits finisher. Forgot what it's called. And the Street Profits advance on to face Pretty Deadly, who's next. Great to see these guys wrestling again. They've been kind of using a lot of comedy bits because they're so damn entertaining. But these guys are really good. They're former NXT Tag Team Champions and former NXT UK Tag Team Champions. These guys are great. So, Pretty Deadly, the spot to start off the match. They rushed the ring and they kind of tricked Dawkins as to who was going to be the first guy to get in. And Kit Wilson gets a couple of roll-ups in for 2. Elton Prince then shot blocked Montez Ford. This was a big portion of this match. Montez was getting beaten down and like worn down because he was really the workhorse of this whole thing. So Montez gets chop blocked by Elton while trying to do a suplex to Kit, and that gives Pretty Deadly control of this match. Then we get to the point where Montez gets a hot tag later on in this match. Kit Wilson's able to get a blind tag, set up a DDT, and Pretty Deadly gets control back a little briefly in this match. Tez then breaks up a 3 count possibility, and the Profits hit a big looking blockbuster, kind of their doomsday device. They get 3 and they eliminate Pretty Deadly. It's then the Good Brothers who are out in this match. The OC, the Good Brothers, they're able to take control of this. Goes immediately to break. Montez gets back control. DDT leading to a tag of Anderson. But he gets and so then Anderson gets control, thrown into the apron, leading to a Dawkins hot tag. And so then he hits a dive onto both Good Brothers. Angelo Dawkins, I got to tell you guys, Angelo Dawkins has gotten into a phenomenal shape. He is it is no longer Montez and, Angelo, who's the Jannetty, who's the Shawn Michaels. Everybody knows Montez is a star. Angelo can go out and be a star on his own, too. This guy has delivered. This guy has always been great, but he is rounded into form doing dives now, so this was great. Anderson's then able to get his great spine buster. Carl Anderson, low-key, is one of the best spine busters in all of professional wrestling. So then the Good Brothers go for the Boot of Doom. It gets countered, and a roll-up by Dawkins gets the win, and they eliminate the Good Brothers. And then it gets to the point where we all knew where this was going. There was going to be a babyface team facing off against the Bloodline at the end of this. And Jacob is able to get a corner splash that misses on Dawkins. So Tez gets in against Tama Tonga later on in this match. Tez is able to hit a cross body for 2. Tez then is able to take out... The end of this match was great. Montez Ford is able to take out everybody outside as he jumps over the corner post. But then he goes for From the Heavens and he misses. It leads to attack from Jacob. Jacob then gets... Jacob goes for the pop-up Samoan drop first off. Montez is able to counter, and Jacob just no-sells it. Just no-sells it. And then he hits the pop-up Samoan drop. He hits the springboard, not even really springboard. It's just like a jump-up moonsault from almost like the prettiest moonsault ever. Springboard moonsault gets the win. The Bloodline wins a really fun, really entertaining... But like I said, it's just there because it's just like you're throwing a bunch of tag teams. So it'll be the Bloodline, Jacob Fatu, and Tama Tonga against Johnny Gargano and Tommaso Ciampa for the tag team titles next week in Cleveland. And a lot of people are like, oh, the Bloodline's going to win the championships. DIY are transitional champions. And you guys clearly haven't been watching WWE for the last 8 years. Triple H loves Gargano and Ciampa. I've got to tell you, this is going to feed into the SummerSlam match. There is going to be some sort of screwy finish where DIY will retain the tag team titles. And it will not involve Jacob Fatu. Jacob Fatu will be protected. This isn't a big deal if he loses because he's not getting pinned. It will be fine. So everybody's going to be fine in this. And no, if you know anything about DIY, they just won the titles literally this month, like 3 weeks ago, they won it. They're not losing the championships this soon and in Johnny Gargano's hometown. It's not happening. Like, they will figure out a way around this. So I think people just trying to, figure out a way to, piece this together to a point where, oh, okay, they're just going to lose and they're just going to be a transitional champion. You guys haven't been watching the show for the last 8 years. DIY has been one of the OG groups, teams, and these two individuals have been treated and beloved by Triple H. I don't think they're losing next week. I'd be really surprised if that happened. And maybe I'm wrong. And maybe they surprise me. But I just like I said, I know they're trying to build up the bloodline, but they don't need to win the titles, especially with Roman Reigns coming back the next night. You can put heat into your feud with Cody Rhodes, or have somebody return, have somebody screw the bloodline, and allow DIY to retain the championships. Like I don't think the bloodline needs the championships here, because they're just cosplaying as Roman's old group, and like they don't need championships inserted into this feud at this point. Maybe I'm wrong, but I just don't think that way. So then they're starting to hype up a little bit more stuff on the show, and Grayson Waller and Austin Theory effectively, hijacked the segment. They blame Terrence Crawford because this was taped last week. Terrence Crawford was involved in that show, giving Cody Rhodes a chair to fend off them early on. So they blamed Terrence Crawford for their loss to Kevin Owens and Cody Rhodes last week. They challenged him to come out and apologize. He gets a big entrance. Waller dares Crawford to take one more step, or Theory will knock him out. Theory hesitates for a little bit, walks forward, and gets hit in the jaw. And Waller just runs away. So they're feeding it a little bit more to this slow burn split between Grayson Waller and Austin Theory, which is fine. I mean, the more I think about it, yeah, you see six teams show up in that match, but Theory and Waller are actually a good team. I'm curious to see how this works out, because I do like the idea of this split happening and Austin Theory being tried out as a babyface, because he showed, if you watched NXT during the pandemic, he showed a lot of charisma and in the way with Johnny Gargano. So there's something there, but again, the tag team division, you're starting to see the limitations in how it's when they split the belts and put them on Raw and on SmackDown. You're starting to see why they unified them in the first place. But I get it. You need to, it's just like you're limiting yourself a little bit when you unify things. So it's going to be interesting to see how the rest of this thing with Theory and Waller play out. And, really cool they had that crossover thing with Terrence Crawford, who's arguably the best pound-for-pound boxer in the world. He hasn't lost a fight, and he's got a big one coming up the night of SummerSlam in 8 nights. So that's really cool that they were able to do that in his hometown of Omaha. So that was pretty cool. We get a Cody interview, which was really just a hype package of him just saying a bunch of stuff, taped saying he was in Japan, reflects on his journey going to the top. He said he thought the bloodline was over, calls this version a doppelganger bloodline. Says the chaos of all of this has left him alone without his closest ally. Says, the two guys fighting by my side, Kevin Owens and Randy Orton, are no longer there. I head to SummerSlam as a man on an island and alone, but I also head in as the champion, and I can't let it slip back into the hands of the bloodline. He said, I used to think Solo wasn't ready. He's mentioned this before. He said this right before Mania 39 when Solo screwed him. He said, I used to think Solo wasn't ready, but now I'm not so sure. Challenges Solo to meet him in the ring one-on-one alone and see if he's ready, if he'll look into his eyes. So we're going to get that confrontation next week in Cleveland. So then before we get to the main event, we got Andrade. This was actually low-key kind of great, and there was a line in here that really popped me. So Andrade basically asked, hey, what's next for you? And he says, yeah, you know what? He was starting to hint at maybe going after the U.S. title. Carmelo Hayes pops into the shot, basically says, it's not over until I win. He taunts Andrade, saying, "Yeah, you haven't been, you weren't around here for 2 years, so you don't know how it goes around here." He says even LeBron James has off nights. Andrade says, "Yeah, you're not LeBron James. You're more like Bronny James." That's pretty funny. No disrespect to Bronny James, but that was funny. And so then Andrade says, "Yeah, you want another match? That's fine." And Carmelo's like, "Yeah, is it that easy?" Sure. And he just walks away. So I think we're gonna get another one between these two. I said it last week. That match was so much fun. These two are, like I said, like Carmelo. It's a given. They're hoopers. These guys are great, and they'll put together another banger. I don't know if that's going to be on the show next week. It wasn't announced, but that'll be interesting. So then we get to the main event. It's Bayley and Michin versus Nia Jax and Tiffany Stratton. The heels attack Michin in her entrance. Bayley's able to break this up. With the kendo stick, but effectively for most of this match is fighting a handicap match, and that's really the story of this thing. Michin stirred for a little bit, gets hit with the Samoan drop by Nia. Tiffany gets a double stomp for 2 going into break. They come back at the perfect point for all you teenage boys who are into this type of stuff. I referenced this with Rhea and Liv, but Tiffany did the stink face on Bayley coming out of break. Tiffany gets a handspring back elbow. Nia is able to come in and get a 2 count. Bayley's able to counter later another handspring elbow into a German suplex. Michin gets up to the apron, and Nia breaks up a potential tag. Nia then runs into the post. Tiffany gets a blind tag, and then Bayley's finally able to tag Michin into this match. Michin gets a tornado DDT, and then hits a dive on Nia. But then Mia misses a missile drop kick. Then the finish of this match was a little bit frantic. Bayley hits a knee and her elbow drop for 2 that gets broken up by Tiffany. But then the ref is distracted. Tiffany hits Bayley with the Money in the Bank briefcase. They effectively throw Michin away to the outside. Nia hits the Annihilator to win the match. She pins the women's champion just 8 days before SummerSlam. So, I mean, it's a coin flip at this point. I thought for sure that Nia was going to win the championship, but the way that they've been playing this out, and with the element of Tiffany Stratton being there, I am honestly not sure how this is going to go. Bayley's been a really good women's champion. And some people are, normally I am not for champions getting pinned so close to pay-per-views or premium live events. This was fine. Bayley got protected. She got hit with the briefcase. The referee was distracted. And Nia's got a really protected finisher in the Annihilator. So Bayley took a lot of crap. And also, she was effectively fighting this match by herself for about half of it. So I don't hate that they pinned Bayley so close to SummerSlam. But I think the bigger thing here is I thought it seemed like Nia Jax was being, tailor-made to potentially win the title. I'm not so sure about that anymore. I mean, I could see this going either way. There's a couple things that could happen at SummerSlam where Bayley wins, Tiffany cashes in. I mean, they could potentially have her fail, which would be interesting, but I just don't see a scenario where you're going to have the first female cash-in fail with Tiffany Stratton. Tiffany's just a star in the making. I don't know why they do that. But I could see a Tiffany cash-in. I could see Bayley getting away and this being strung along a little bit longer. Or I could see Nia winning and Tiffany just holds on to the briefcase and they build and build and build this potentially to something where it's a cash-in on Nia, which would be interesting because Tiffany's over. The fans love her. So to see her potentially go and be a babyface out of this would be an interesting way to go. But like I said, there was a lot of uncertainty everywhere else on this card. I'm not so certain about where this is going. And seeing Nia get a visible pin, which in Triple H's WWE, you usually do not see the champions taking pinfalls. Cody Rhodes is one of them. He did take it at Money in the Bank. But outside of a couple of instances, you really haven't seen that very often. So, and again, this was really protected, and it's done in a way where it's not where it's mostly cheap, and it's not like, oh, okay, you're getting pinned clean. You don't want to see your champions getting pinned clean. So, and then the show ends with a Bloodline promo. Bloodline basically, it's Solo basically saying, if Roman Reigns has a problem with any of what's going on, I'll meet you, Cody, in the ring. I'm taking the championship back, blah, 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 blah. And he says, if Roman Reigns has any problem with, you know where to find me. You can end up like everyone before and acknowledge me. And it shows everybody who's taken the strays of the Bloodline. So we're planting the seeds, man, for Roman Reigns' return. So that's SmackDown. Listen, like I said, this show was not outright terrible, okay? But I said it on my social media. I've said it here a couple times already. This show was mid. This was mid, and when you stack it against what's going on Monday Night Raw, it is miles behind. These feel like two different shows. And it's lacking star power. Yes, I love LA Knight, and I think LA Knight's having a great thing. Bayley's trying her best. She's been a great women's champion. The tag team gauntlet was great. But you've got Cody Rhodes, who's been a great champion, but something is missing from this show. And I think once Roman Reigns comes back, there is going to be a jolt of energy that is put into this show. and the Bloodline feud that's going to be gradually built through the back half of this year, I think is going to put a lot of juice into the show when it moves back over to USA, out of network television and back to cable television. But you're starting to see that, like SmackDown, it's slowly become the B show again after it was the A show for about 5 years, with this partnership with Fox. So, like I said, not a bad show, but not a great show. And especially 8 days out from your second biggest premium live event of the year, that's a little bit disappointing. So, anyway, so that's the show. We'll have a lot more stuff going into next week. SummerSlam's coming up. Really excited about that in my second home of Cleveland. We'll see what Logan Paul was talking about. That'll be interesting to see if they play in and do some crossover stuff with the match with LA Knight at SummerSlam. So that's interesting. But like I said, SmackDown's, they've got talent. They can do this, but it's just like, it feels like two different shows. Excited for Raw, man. Like, cause we're going to get Seth Rollins in his instructions, for Drew and CM Punk in that match. Damian Priest and that hot build with Gunther is going to continue. So there's a lot going on here. So excited to talk about it. Talk to you guys a little bit later on, and, follow the show at OT Mike Wrestling. Please like, share, and subscribe here on YouTube. Follow me on Twitter, OT Mike Wrestling, and Off the Mic 28. Talk to you guys real soon. Bye-bye.